in order to win the day, you have to win the moment. Right?
Yeah.
You got. I got to win right now. I got to win 1 minute from now, and I got to win 1 hour from now. Right? And it doesn't mean I'm going to win all those. Right? But I'm planning on winning it. And just like you're not going to win every game if you're an athlete, right? But you need to win the majority of those games if you ever want to get to a championship. So it's the same concept. So one of the things I would say to people that might be watching this podcast right now is, take one thing that's been gnawing at you. Like, I really need to do this. I should be doing this. I wish I would have done this, whatever it is. And the second you're done watching this, start something.
I love it. Go.
Not tomorrow, not next week, not Monday.
Right.
Right now.
Right.
I guarantee you, without exception, you will get a dopamine lift within 10 minutes the second you make that commitment and take some action right there.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of Run with the Cheetahs, your guide to an extraordinary life. This is the podcast, which is the companion podcast to the book, Run with the Cheetahs, right here. And by the way, if you don't have this, you should. It's really very, very good. And I think my favorite thing about this book is that you literally can open it up at any time. You don't need to read it from start to finish. Just before we started this today, I was browsing through, and I just love it that you can pick it up and just jump in anywhere. You're sure to get a couple of golden gems. But my name is Russell Anderson, and I'm joined today with the author of Run with the Cheetahs, Jerry Freishtat. Let's bring him in for a second for him to say hello to everybody. Jerry, hello there.
Hey, good day to everybody. It was a awesome Thanksgiving, the month of December, which presents its own set of challenges, and I think we're going to address some of those head on today.
Jerry, we are. Dude, we are loaded. I mean, we are. So I know you said when you looked at the outline for this, you said, Russell, that's 4 podcasts. And I said,
Right.
No, we're going to jam this together. Ladies and gentlemen, the original intent of this episode was to talk about commitment because, we shoot these a little bit ahead of time. And this particular episode is actually not scheduled to run until a little bit after New Year's, the first week or so. But what a great time to talk about commitment. But as I thought about it a little bit more, I said, no, let's jump in there and help these people that have made some New Year's resolutions, or even those that have not. And, some of those who have probably already bailed on it, because that's kind of what happens with a lot of people. We've got some great stuff today for making change, some really good stuff. And we're going to start out by talking about one of the core subjects or core topics here, and that is choices, the subject of choice and making choices. And, before I get Jerry going real strong, I want to read to you 4 quotes. And these are the sort of memes you see in all your social media, but they're all about choices. For those of you who are listening, I'm going to read it, but for those who are watching on YouTube, you're going to see these. So here's the first one. Everything in your life is a reflection of a choice you have made. If you want a different result, make a different choice. Good stuff. Next one. Your life is the sum of your daily choices. You're choosing your future with today's decisions. Third one. You don't find yourself, you create yourself through the choices you make and the actions you take. Identity is not discovered, it's constructed. That's one of my favorites because I love the thought about how we are the architects of our life. I tell my business clients that all the time. If you own a business, you get to be the architect of that business. You get to design it yourself. Same with our own personal lives. And then the last one for the moment. Every day, you're either building the person you want to become or the one you're trying to escape? All good stuff. Jerry, I'm coming back to you with this, my man. I'm coming back to you. So, in your opinion, what separates people who keep creating new choices in their life and growing versus the ones who stay stuck with the choices they've previously made?
Yeah, let's jump in right here with what you just said about the being the architect of your life. I mean, that is, I always refer to that as like who's writing the chapters of your life. So like your life's a set of chapters, X amount of years, then go to the next one and the next one and the next one. And the reality for most people is those chapters are written by external exposures, circumstances, opinions, what other people think, and people very rarely, actually pursue, what it is that they're made of and what they're looking to do. I always like to say, average is a sin, comfort is a curse. And what you need to understand about that is what you're not changing, you're choosing. Yes. Which is, people need to really think about that. You hear a lot of people go with that old wives' tale, ignorance is bliss. And the reason that term exists is because, if I don't know about it, it can't hurt me, right? It's like, I'd rather just live, kind of, in the background somewhere and let all the world's problems be somewhere else and so forth. And, but the reality of it is that ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is one thing. It's stupidity, right? Okay. If you don't know what you don't know, and people who don't want to know, they're embedded in what I call bias, right? All of us are programmed, from birth by a certain, way, by our environment, our exposure, our parents, teachers, coaches, whatever it is. And that creates a embedded bias in everything that we see, everything that we decide, and decisions that we make. In order to be successful, you have to learn how to control that bias, because great decisions are not made from a place of bias. They're made with reason and logic. And that's one of the key differentiators of highly successful people. They have the ability to understand their biases and question it, and then they go on to make decisions. And that's how great choices are made.
That's fantastic. And I know we have talked about bias between ourselves in the past. I think we're going to probably end up doing an entire episode on that here coming up, because it's really important to understand where those beliefs and biases come from and how to work with them and how to work against them. Well, here's one for you. Let me ask you this. Can someone ever fully recover from a terrible choice or some decisions that leave a permanent scar on their soul?
Well, you can, but let me categorize this for you. One of my favorite sayings is from Dan Penna. He goes, "True self-esteem is built with scar tissue." Right? So again, I don't know anybody that's had any level of success at some high level that hasn't suffered terrible losses, setbacks, crises, and what you do with those. I mean, as far as recovering from things, that old saying, forgive and forget. And a lot of religion, talks about forgiving and things like that, and you can forgive, but biologically, you cannot forget. And that's where I find that whole concept flawed. You can work in a methodology of trying to forget what happened in the past, but biologically, it has created a pathway in your brain, and something that was really devastating to you, or just a huge loss, something like that. I mean, for me, it's my divorce. I mean, those thoughts during those years and the devastation and the crisis I was in for 2 years, that's not going away. So what you do is you have to overwrite that with more positive things, like which in decisions that you make. And since my divorce, I've made a lot of really good decisions that enable me to just put that kind of in the back burner. Is it going to surface every now and then? Of course it does. But as long as you're constantly overwriting with positive things, my new marriage, my kids, whatever, career, as long as you're moving in the right direction, you have less time to think about the negativity. So it's always going to be there, and you have to accept that. But if you focus on new things, growth, expansion, and how wonderful the future is, it really gets suppressed and kind of stays in the background.
I love it. Well, this time of year is a time when, again, talking around the New Year's time, you and I we love change, and we look forward to change. I look forward to making new choices for myself. But this time of year, people hopefully have made some new choices for themselves. New Year's resolutions, what a big deal. It's a big deal. And they've made some new choices. And after they've made these new choices, the next topic that comes up that's important for us to explore is the topic of commitment. And are you committed to your new choices? Now, I know you well enough to know you go from 0 to 150 miles an hour on commitment. I mean, you are a commitment fiend, okay? But in honesty, there are at least 4 different levels of commitment. And I want to read these levels of commitment because I can relate to these. I see commitment really on a gray scale, or on from here to here. It's a scale. But the 4 levels are: number 1 is not even trying. That's no commitment at all. Not even trying. That's 0. Number 2 is, you hear this all the time, doing your best. Doing your best. And that's often considered a very dangerous level because it sounds committed, but may stop short of the necessary effort. Number 3, oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I skipped it, Jerry. Number 1 was not even trying. Number 2 was trying. Trying. I'm trying. Oh, and a couple episodes again, ladies and gentlemen, Jerry called me out. It was hilarious. He called me out for when I said I was trying to do something. It was fantastic. Okay, so number 1 is not trying. Number 2 is trying. Then the 3rd level is doing your best, which is often considered a dangerous level because it sounds like you're committed, but it may stop short. And then last, but most important, is doing whatever it takes. And this is the only level that's considered to be true commitment that achieves significant results. Jerry, I've got a couple of questions for you, but do you have anything you want to say about commitment in general?
Well, I'll start out with the word trying is the same as I'm not doing it, right? That's not in any way, shape, or form any type of commitment when you say, oh, I'm going to try this. Because the second you try something and you run into the most microscopic obstacle or difficulty or anything else, it's over. And so I like to eliminate that word, from the vocabulary. We don't try things, we do things.
Love it.
So there's 3 kinds of people: interested, committed, or obsessed. And again, getting back to, I've said this a million times, I've studied the most highly successful people for 30 years. Every single one of them, complete, all-in obsession for periods of time on one thing in their life. And, again, getting away from that concept of a balanced lifestyle. You're never going to achieve anything great if you're looking for balance your whole life. I'm not saying you can't go for a little balance in between these obsessive, periods, or when you get a little older, you might have a little more balance. But for some period of time, you got to be obsessed. And I refer people to Tim Grover's book Winning. He has a chapter in there about being all in. And all I can tell you is that when you think you're all in, you really haven't even started.
Wow.
That's how obsessed and committed somebody is. And one last thing on this question is, I'm just going to throw this out there, is people like setting goals. A goal without a commitment is a waste, just complete waste. It's not a goal. You have to attach those commitments and what obsessive behaviors are going to take you to that goal and break that down, consistently. So, it's not a commitment; it's obsession, and commitments fall as a subcategory of the obsession.
So this time of year, again, we're acting as though this is New Year's or around New Year's. This time of year, a lot of people are going to say, this is going to be what they say. Their choice is, I'm going to eat healthier this year. Now, what's wrong with that as a choice?
Well, I find that it's absurdly ridiculous. I mean, either you're in a regimented, healthy lifestyle every part of the year, or you're not. Right? There is no, in between. I'll say this, just coming out of from my education in the bodybuilding world. If you're somebody who's absurdly obsessed with health and wellness, you eat clean and everything else. And I think we saw Cliff Brooks say something about this the other day. And Thanksgiving comes around, right? And you take that one day, and you ate literally double what you would normally eat. You had dessert. I don't drink alcohol, but let's just say you had 2 beers and a glass of wine, whatever. On that one day, it's totally irrelevant, as long as the next day you're right back on track.
Absolutely.
And so again, a lot of people think you have to be this robot, you can never do anything. It doesn't work that way. It's what you're doing 95% of the time that makes the difference. So to say I'm going to start eating healthy, what do you mean start? What about like right now, 5 minutes from now? I mean, and what did I do yesterday? It's a lifestyle. It's not something you start. It's an ingrained obsession of health and wellness. I mean, I plan on living to 100. Right. So yeah, that's what I think about. So if I'm thinking about that, of course, I'm not going to go out and do something, counter to that.
Well, and I have one more piece on that, and that is that that comment of I'm going to eat healthier, that lacks any sort of specificity. Is that a word? It lacks the specifics of what you're going to do. It does. What does that even mean? So if your goal is to eat healthier this year, and I hope for all of our listeners that is, then you need to be a little bit more specific about that. How are you going to eat healthier this year? What are you going to do that constitutes I'm eating healthier this year?
And getting back to the obsession part of that, you have to get educated as to what healthy eating is. Okay. And it's a lot of what you don't eat as well as what you do eat. And very few people, people ask me all the time, they come up to me, how do you look like that when you're 65 years old? And, and I'm just hesitant to even get into the question with them, because you have to take a year, 2 years of educating yourself on biology. How does the human body work? What nutrients do I need? Do I work with a specific life extension doctor who's checking my blood work, making sure all my minerals and all my blood markers are correct, and so forth? Again, it's an obsession, and unless you go that route, unfortunately, I see so many people who think they're trying to get healthy doing it the wrong way.
Okay, so I just have to share this. So in the past couple of weeks, Jerry and I attended a conference together, and so we would have breakfast, we'd have a couple of meals together, and it's just so funny. I think I'm doing pretty well. I have definitely improved my eating. But Jerry, I know you don't eat cheese, and we would go to breakfast in the morning, and I would cut into my omelet, and the cheese would ooze out of that. I'm sure you were looking at that going, oh, dude, come on, Russell, let's get it. Let's do this right. I thought it was hilarious. All right. Yeah. Well, here's another one for you about commitment. And, it's a big deal. I know a lot of people who are really big on, they want to keep their options open. I want to keep my options open. And that's a tough one. I mean, it's tough to keep your options open and be committed at the same time, right?
Yeah, well, again, if you want to build anything extraordinary, right, you have to, let's take a look at the word extraordinary. What's the first part of that? Extra, right?
Oh,
And all I can tell people is that focus on that extra in every category. I mean, everything takes extra. You got to do more than other people are doing, and you have to, do consistently what other people are doing occasionally. If you're going to, get involved with doing something extra like that, but by keeping your options open. What that does is it essentially you're lying to yourself is what you're doing by keeping your options open, because if you're keeping your options open, there's no commitment. Okay, I'd rather you pick three options, commit to one this week. Okay, let's do this for a month, see how it goes. And if that doesn't work, another key element of successful people, they will pivot, change, get rid of what isn't working, find a new path, do that all over. So let's go to the next commitment. And then let's go to the next commitment. It doesn't mean they're going to work, right? But every single time you do that, your education level goes through the roof, because life is not always about being successful. It's about learning what is not working and making you not successful so you don't repeat those behaviors.
yeah. I mean, you're so true, so true. And I hope that this little tidbit here on commitment lets people realize and recognize where they are on that commitment scale with some of the choices they've made. Are you fooling yourself? Are you not really going to be able to get where you need to go with a weak commitment on one of your new choices? So I think that's trying to tie commitment to your choices is really important. So we're going to move on. And now here's one that, boy, this is a bad word: accountability. Accountability, a tough word. Now, I have to say, a couple of months ago, Brian Knight posted something about accountability. I follow his newsletter. It's really good stuff. Get an email from him every day. Um, Accountability has a bad rap. It's because most of the time we're only hearing about accountability when something has gone wrong. Brian, I know certainly in business and certainly at work, when something doesn't go right, you want to, well, who's responsible for this? Who's accountable to this? And it's only framed in the negative term. And so we hate that word. I mean, we hate that word accountability. We hate sometimes thinking that we have to be responsible. But the reality is that's a beautiful word. And that's a word that once you understand how important accountability is to yourself, you can make some things happen. Wouldn't you agree with most of that?
Well, of course, but the reality is, and again, statistically, you can find this everywhere. The more accountability you take on in your life, and the more you can endure, the more successful outcomes you're going to have in life. I mean, the two just line up perfectly. And I think we're talking about this later. But accountability is not just being accountable for what's in your control. You have to be accountable for what's not in your control.
I understand. Yeah. So with accountability, sometimes you have to say, well, how can I improve, or how can I get closer and get better with my accountability? And, some of the tools that people use, some people journal, some people keep a diary, some people have we're going to talk about win the day here in a little bit by making yourself a list. And all of those things are helpful. But, Cliff Brooks, again, he posted something here in the past week that was just fantastic. He says, without question, the strongest form of accountability is band of brothers. Get yourself some people that you can commit to with, and that together you're going to be a lot stronger. And that falls perfectly in line with what we've talked about before about the people you hang with. I mean,
Right.
the number one way to grow in an area that you want to grow is to hang around people who are doing what you want to be doing. That's it. I mean, that's period end,
Again, that's why you'll see that, again, highly successful people have very few what you call friends. And I don't even call them friends. I call them allies. They're allies because they're like-minded. They want to see you be successful. They're not jealous of your success. And it's vice versa. It goes both ways. People that try to elevate each other. And, I feel like you and I are like that. and that's what builds, that bonding, builds confidence, and knowing you have a resource to go to. I mean, it's like a great coach like Nick Saban or somebody like that. If you were playing for Nick Saban, you have a bond. I mean, it's tight.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so we started talking about choices, and then we talked about commitment. We talked about accountability, all important words. But, listen to this. I'm going to now go off the reservation just a little bit here and talk about one of my favorite modern day philosophers, Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson and his son, and his song Man in the Mirror. I mean, what a fantastic song that is. And back when we were interviewing your bodybuilding coach, David Johnson, he had made the claim, and we've said it here in the podcast, that when someone goes down the road of bodybuilding, 90% of the people that start do not finish. It's actually less than 10% that get to the goal of getting on stage and competing, which is where they're trying to go. I'm sure that there's plenty of improvement done in the other 90%, but less than 10% achieve the final victory of where they want to go. And I asked David, I said, what is the difference between the people that succeed and the people that don't? And he said, the people that succeed have a real honest conversation with themselves. I mean, they look themselves in the mirror and they fess up to their weaknesses, what they're lacking, where the discipline. I mean, they have an honest conversation with themselves about what's going to need to happen to be successful. And I think we all need to do that. And I don't think we're very good at it. I don't think we're very good at having that talk with the man in the mirror.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people avoid the man in the mirror because, again, factually, tons of people are addicted to their problems. They do not want to take a look at the man in the mirror because what they see is pain, suffering, work ethic, fear, the changes that need to be made in order to change the man in the mirror. It's just too overwhelming for most people. So that's why they don't do it. But I'm going to go back to Ed Milet, and he said, in order to love yourself, you need to know yourself. And that requires brutal honesty with yourself. For me, the man in the mirror is a great analogy, but I use something a little different. And this came out of the bodybuilding thing as well. I always envision somebody else's on the other side of the room looking at me all day long, everything I'm doing. And I ask myself, what does that person see? And that just grounds me to no end, and I will actually catch myself, let's just say I say something with a bad tone, or I snap at my wife about something, whatever it might be. I've learned to immediately go to that where, oh, wait a minute, what did that look like? Right. So, and then when you start doing that, you get real honest with yourself, and it's not to beat yourself up. I mean, you're not going to change, the nature of who you are, and nobody's perfect, and you're going to have, anger is just a normal emotion and things like that. But if you do that, and it'll kind of just give you a better perspective on the next time you're faced with any type of situation where you didn't behave exactly like you wanted to. Just envision, what did those other people just see? And that works really well for me.
I think that's a great technique. I don't think I use that, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it a couple of times because, I have those times too when I definitely do a little something that's not in line with who I want to be. And sometimes I just suck it up and say, okay, I got to do better than that. But I'm going to try that third person looking at me and see how that works. That sounds kind of interesting. All right. So Jerry, let me ask you this. Why is it so much easier for us to be brutally honest with somebody else than to be honest with ourselves?
Yeah. Well, the real question is when you're brutally honest with somebody else, are you really brutally honest with somebody else? I mean, because people who are not brutally honest with themselves, have little to offer to others because it's just opinion based. It's not based in fact and logic or experience that someone's doing. So, a lot of people love spewing advice
Yes.
about things they have no right spewing advice about. That's bad for both people. I mean, the person giving that advice knows internally, I just made that shit up, whatever it might be. It's just an opinion I heard from somebody else who's somewhere, like that. So, people that are out spewing those things, and expressing views, and offering up opinions. And another thing about, being highly successful is just always make sure when you're listening to somebody's opinion, you understand it's just an opinion depending on the source and where it's coming from, right? So, you really only want to, seek advice, from those, who have been in the trenches and who are honest with themselves. I'm going off track a little bit here, but here's how you tell. I just want to give you just a little bit out of my book. I'm just going to look at my notes right here. So when you want to get advice from somebody, and you want to know that it's honest advice and it's factual advice, there's 4 things I want to mention here. Number 1, make sure they were in the trenches. If they haven't done it, they can't teach it, right? Number 2, okay, look for the failed goal person, somebody who actually failed miserably at something, okay, and by the way, and did it publicly, like everybody knows, right? And then recovered and came back and hit a home run. That's one of the key characteristics because every highly successful person has done that. Number 3, the truth teller, someone who makes you uncomfortable, okay, but will thank you later. I've experienced this multiple times in my life. I've had people, great people, be brutally honest with me, tell me the truth to my face, and at the time I was like, "What the hell?" I was like livid. And then a year later, 2 years later, you know what? They were right.
Wow.
And so someone who speaks the truth is critical. And by the way, it's a rare thing in today's world to find those people. So you got to be careful who you listen to. And the last one is find somebody who's unbiased. Okay. Most of us go to family, friends, our parents, whatever, to get advice. Okay. They are biased. They like you. They love you. They want to protect you. They want to make sure you don't make a mistake. Okay. The world is not about making mistakes, right? So this is a person who gains nothing from your success, but enjoys your success. So those 4 things are what you want to look for when you're seeking advice. And it's hard. I'm just telling you, when you want to get advice, sometimes it's not going to be from a friend. Sometimes it's going to be somebody you don't have to like their personality. I mean, it's like Donald Trump. I mean, tons of people hate that guy's personality, right? But does he have categories and areas that he's like, expert at or, incredible what he can offer up? Yes. Just a lot of people just base opinion and advice on their emotions. And most of us seek out what we want to hear, not what we need to hear. So take those 4 things when you're getting advice and your life will get a whole lot better.
That's all good stuff. That's fantastic stuff. So, to wrap up Men in the Mirror, let me just say, I wanted to know, because I feel like too many of us don't have that honest conversation about our choices. We don't have that honest conversation about our commitments. We don't have that honest conversation about our accountability and how responsible we are. So, here I went to AI. I love this. I went to AI and I said, give me a couple of good arguments to share with people about how they need to look themselves in the mirror and talk to themselves. And I got to read you a couple of these because this is pretty strong. This is pretty strong stuff. It's number 1 is, well, you're already having the conversation. You're just lying in it. Every single day you make choices what you eat, who you date, what you work on, what you scroll, is you voting for the life you actually want. The only difference is that right now you're drunk on excuses and self-deception. Facing the mirror sober is terrifying only because you already know the verdict. Number 2.
AI is the greatest author of all time. That was so good.
There's a couple here. I mean, just take any one of these. Yeah. Number 2, avoiding the truth doesn't pause the clock. It just makes the bill bigger. Time is the only currency you cannot earn back. Every year you spend in a career you hate, a body you neglect, a relationship that's dead, or a dream you're waiting for the right moment to chase is a year you will never get back. The pain of regret, there's your regret word, Jerry. The pain of regret at 60, looking back at 35, is exponentially worse than the pain of honesty at 35.
Awesome.
This is great too. Number 3.
Yeah.
Comfort is the slow-acting poison you're already addicted to. Right now, your brain is dripping dopamine from Netflix, junk food, porn, validation likes, and one-day fantasies. That comfort is sterilizing your soul. The longer you stay numb, the more you forget what it even feels like to want something so bad it hurts. All right, I got a couple more here, but this is just so important. It's so important that we deal with this. We've got to be honest with ourselves. Number 4, nobody is coming to save you. Not your parents, not your partner, not your therapist, not me. The cavalry isn't coming because you are the cavalry. The only person who can give you permission to live the life you actually want is the one staring back at you in the mirror. Until you look that person in the eye and admit what you really want with no filters, no apologies, you're just ghost piloting your own body. Wow. All right, one more. Number 5, maybe 2 more, but one more. You're going to die. That's not a motivational poster. That's a fact. One day, probably sooner than you think, your heart will stop and every unread book, unwritten song, unconfessed love, unstarted business, and unlived lives die with you. Most people's biggest fear isn't death. It's reaching the end and realizing they never lived.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, you're right. I got to stay out of AI. So
that is just that hits hard. That was really, really good. Really good.
So where do we go with this? Well, where we go with this now, with choices and commitment levels and accountability and being honest with ourselves. Now the plan is a win the day approach. It's let's figure out how to win the day, one day at a time. So Jerry, win the day sounds like a great strategy for me, but let me ask you this. Why do so many New Year's resolutions die in the first 72 hours of January?
Because it's not a New Year's resolution; it's a New Year's illusion, right? There's really no such thing as a New Year's resolution. And as a matter of fact, the concept's basically absurd. People who are making New Year's resolutions and these what I call false commitments and so forth. To go back to an old Zig Ziglar phrase, you need a checkup from the neck up, right? You're just not approaching it, the right way. It's most people live in their escape time and occasionally work. Okay. And people don't believe that, but if you actually mapped out your work and, profession and your efforts in personal growth and health and wellness and everything else, and compare that to the time that you're just escaping into all the negativity and everything else that's not heading you in the right direction, most people spend the majority of their time in their escape time and occasionally work.
Yeah.
That's the exact opposite of what the success formula is. And I call it the big lie. If you're going to, go down this path of being successful, it's regimented disciplines, and it should consume 95% of your time. And your escape time is just 5 to 10% of your time. And here's the most important thing about that escape time. It has to be planned. Right? Everybody's living in their escape time. It's like a normal thing that puts you in a place of comfort. If you plan your escape time, not only does it feel better, you gain something from it. It's like your break, right? And it feels better than when you're just living that way at random on a daily basis. Most people, say, yeah, well, someday I'll get started, kind of like the, New Year's resolution thing. And, last I checked, someday is not a day of the week. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, all right. So that someday will be coming all the way till you get to the grave. All high-level performers view every day with the same regimented disciplines. And if there's things that throw them off track, it's always temporary. I mean, because life does get in the way, things do happen. People get sick. People can't live like a robot, like I said earlier. But the second whatever issues, change the path, just a little bit off the road, to the right, to the left, whatever, the next day, man, you're back center right down that highway.
Well, Jerry, you are one tough SOB. you are hardcore, my man. See, I have a slightly different perspective on this, but that's because I'm softer than you are. I need to grow up a little bit. But I would prefer, because we're talking about people making choices and new choices. And those new choices have to have a start date. They have to start on those new choices. And that's the win the day thing. I think Angela Milkman, I think is her name. She has a book called How to Change. And one of the things she points out is that a restart or a reset date is often an important part of making a change. Whether it's I'm going to start Monday or I'm going to start today, I'm going to start on New Year's, which is where the resolutions thing comes from. Now, I grant you, most people are amateurs with New Year's resolutions. And so they are oftentimes they fade quick. But hopefully with the sort of information we're giving everybody today about making choices and making commitments about those choices, and then being accountable, facing themselves honestly, hopefully we're going to see a little bit more of a serious commitment in some people's choices for the new year or whenever they make them. Friday, today, whenever. So with just slightly different perspective on that, but I know how good you are. I know how hardcore you are. I love it. Absolutely love it. So let me ask you this. I introduced, and Cliff Brooks talks about winning the day. Is win the day just another productivity cliche, or is it actually the only thing that has ever worked in the history of high achievers?
A day, let's just talk about a day first. A day is, by human nature, defined as a reset every single day, because we go to sleep every night and we wake up the next day. So you can use it from that perspective. But in order to win the day, you have to win the moment. Right? You got. I got to win right now. I got to win 1 minute from now, and I got to win 1 hour from now. Right? And it doesn't mean I'm going to win all of those. Right? But I'm planning on winning it. And just like you're not going to win every game if you're an athlete, right? But you need to win the majority of those games if you ever want to get to a championship. So it's the same concept. So one of the things I would say to people that might be watching this podcast right now is, take one thing that's been gnawing at you. Like, I really need to do this. I should be doing this. I wish I would have done this, whatever it is. And the second you're done watching this, start something.
I love it. Go.
Not tomorrow, not next week, not Monday.
Right.
Right now.
Right.
I guarantee you, without exception, you will get a dopamine lift within 10 minutes the second you make that commitment and take some action right there. And the other thing about winning the day is I want to give you two things. So the first thing is, even if you're on the right track, okay, you'll get run over if you just sit there. Okay, there is no neutral, right? So you can't, like, just that example I just gave about starting something right now. If you don't continue it and keep working on it and make it a part of your regimen, eventually you're going to get run over, and which will be a big setback, if that happens. And then the other part that I want to mention on this topic is the principle of accumulation. The more those little wins. And this is where people get way off track. People are focused on the 5-year goal. They think about, when I get $1 million. They think about when I find the perfect soulmate, all these things. You must focus on micro little wins. I don't care if it's something that you did, like right now, you decided I'm going to eat a healthy lunch versus an unhealthy lunch. I'm not going to order this. I'm going to get this instead. Those are little wins, and they accumulate. The more they accumulate, the more your confidence goes up, and then the easier it gets. It gets back to that concept we talked in one of the earlier podcasts. The action precedes the motivation.
And your accumulation principle is really important. All that stuff adds up. It all adds up and makes for a better you. For a better you. Well, Jerry, when you hear the word, or when you hear discipline equals freedom, do you feel inspired or exhausted?
Well, for me, again, I've been doing this for many, many years, right, of living this lifestyle. So, but I didn't always live this lifestyle. I mean, I was 100% in that sheep category for the first half of my life. So, but true freedom, comes from, we talked about this earlier, 100% accountability of everything, both in control and out of your control. And the only avenue to get there is through discipline. And there is no magic, by the way, to discipline. I mean, I can't, there's no speaker, teacher, educator, or anything else that is going to teach you to be disciplined. It is a mindset. You just literally got to make up your mind and have faith in the process that if I do this enough of times, I'm going to have a good, positive outcome. So, discipline, matter of fact, you can't have true freedom without discipline. So the two go hand in hand.
Well, this next question kind of plays back into your accumulation principle. But at what point does stacking enough 1 days become an identity instead of just a streak?
Again, this depends. You can't define that 100%, because it depends on what actions you're taking and what it is you're working on. Just for example, so some people, let's just take, someone that is, 45 years old, literally has never been to the gym. Okay. That person, in order for them to get to the point where it's like dreading going every day to where, oh my God, I can't wait to go to the gym. Okay. Which eventually happens.
Yes.
Okay. That's 6 to 12 months away. 6 to 12 months away. That's why nobody makes it, right? Everybody wants to feel that way in a week. Or actually, some people want to feel that way in a day, right? Okay. Whereas, other things like eating clean, for example, if you got with, somebody who was going to help you eat a clean diet, you stuck to it, literally in 2 weeks, you start feeling pretty good, right? Yeah. So it really, really depends on what the issue is about stacking these wins. But I will say this, getting those wins on a micro basis. I was going to say daily, but it's really hourly, whatever. It's even shorter than that. Will always, without question, put you in a better position than you were without it. right?
Fantastic.
So you have to just get started with whatever it is, and don't make it too big, please. If you make it too big, you're going to quit.
Yeah.
Pick something simple, get those disciplines down, and then when you have that success, you're going to say to yourself, you know what? I did that thing over there. I can do this thing over here.
All right. So let me ask you this personally, walk us through your actual morning routine right now. No aspirational version, no BS. What time do your feet hit the floor? And what's the very first win you force?
Okay, before I answer that question, I think there's something really important we need to talk about here.
What you got?
Every single person I know has negative thoughts, right? They're not going away no matter what you do, right? So when you wake up in the morning, the first thing, there's an illusion, by the way, that like highly successful people don't have this, or they don't have problems, and they don't have all this. It's the biggest crock of bullshit ever. I have the same exact problems. I know people 10 times more successful than me, the same exact problems as the person who's never done anything. It's a different set of problems, but you still have those problems. So when I wake up in the morning, depending on, and this is the way everybody is, depending on what's happened the previous day, a couple of days, or an event that occurred, you potentially are going to dread the day, and you're going to have some negative thoughts. So when I wake up, the very first thing I do, and by the way, I get up at 5 a.m. every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and I don't use an alarm clock. Right. But when I wake up at 5, I will sit on the edge of the bed and I will take a second to get my perspective back in line. Because when you're sleeping, your subconscious mind is just cranking, and you can have positive dreams, you can have negative dreams, you have all these different things. But if there's issues that are got to be taken care of, and you have some concerns, situations, whatever it is, family matters, everybody has the same stuff, illnesses, whatever it might be. You got to get your perspective right first thing in the morning. So that's the first thing that I do. And then the second thing that I do is I will, go in and do my hygiene stuff. But as I said earlier, my goal is to live to 100. So I work with a life extension doctor on peptides. I take my series of peptides in the morning. Okay. Then I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to feed my dog, let him out, feed the dog. I will make a cup of coffee, and then the day kind of starts. Okay. I'm going to go spend 15 to 30 minutes, and I do this every single day. Either I'm going to read a chapter, I'm going to jump on Instagram and watch my favorite reels of mentors. I may spend some time on education with something that I want to learn about, whatever it is. 15 to 30 minutes. It's not hours for everybody. That sets the tone of the day. No matter what I woke up with, I'm going to feel a little better about getting things going. After that, I go to the gym. And the gym is, again, unnegotiable. It's not a negotiable. I go to the gym every single day. As a matter of fact, I've had a nasty cold the last 4 or 5 days. Doesn't matter. I go to the gym. Am I working out hard like I would if I felt great? No, but it doesn't matter. I'm showing up, right? And then when I get back from the gym, and every single day, it starts with health and wellness. I have a protein shake that it's customized for me. I use a specific protein. I mix in some liquid acai. It has some glutamine. Has some healthy greens, healthy reds, creatine. I put all this in my shake, and I'll have my shake, and I will have my mineral supplements with that. And by 8 o'clock, I'm basically ready to go with whatever the day, has in store. So, for me, since I sold my companies a few years ago, my days are are significantly variable. I mean, every day is like kind of different for me now, which I don't really like, but I have to, again, discipline myself to make sure that, I plan out the day as to, what the goals are and what I'm going to be doing. So, I mean, that's basically it. I mean, and I'm going to tell you another thing. I'm in bed by 10 o'clock every single night. Matter of fact, 9:30 some nights, but between 9:30 and 10, I'm in bed sleeping. And so that, because I get up at 5, that gives me my, full 7, 8 hours, and, and I feel great.
Yeah. Jerry, that was fantastic. What a great review of that morning routine. So I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyways, just so we can do it concisely. What's the smallest daily action that has produced the biggest compound result for you in the last 3 to 5 years?
It's no doubt working out. I mean, because in my book, I talk about the 18 characteristics of success, and I always, like to say that they're all important, but health and wellness is number one, because everything stems from health and wellness. Your mental capacity is related to how your body's functioning, right? Yeah. If you don't feel great and your body's not working right and everything is healthy and operating the way it's supposed to operate, you cannot be at peak performance, right? So going to the gym, health and wellness is the key. And also, again, I'm just restating this again, what I said earlier, I've got my own set of issues and problems, and everybody does. When I hit that gym, and there's many days you don't want to go. I mean, again, there's this illusion like, it's like easy for you, right? No, it's not. There's days where, I got big issues going on. I got personal problems, whatever it might be, just like everybody else. Do it anyways.
Love it. Because
when you walk out that door of the gym, your whole vision changes compared to if you didn't go, of whatever your concerns are. So that's what I'd recommend people to do. And I just, for the general population out there that's listening to this, you don't have to be crazy about the gym like I am, right? I mean, I do hard workouts. I'm a former bodybuilder. It's a matter of getting there and getting in the basics, just a health and wellness routine going in your life that is something that you can count on, to get your day going in the right direction.
I was at a dinner party last night, and a couple of the people that were there were yoga people. And I have told myself and my friends, including you, that for years and years and years, ever since I took a yoga class back in college, I have tried intermittently to practice yoga. And I still enjoy the few things that I do in the morning. But last night when I was talking to these couple of yoga people, I realized that if they ever saw me do what I do in the morning, they would say, well, I don't know what that is, but it sure ain't yoga.
Right.
Last question on this topic. If you had to tattoo one sentence on your wrist that you'd see every single morning for the rest of your life and would force you to win the day every time, what would that be?
Well, that's an easy one. It's one of the main lines in my book. Embrace the battle.
And that has become my favorite line as well. It's a great line. It really gets you to lean in to your challenges. And I think we had either a 2 or a 3-part series on Embrace the Battle that just finished up with our last episode. So Embrace the Battle is a big deal. All right. Well, we're gonna finish with one more topic, and it's an important topic. And you mentioned it a little bit earlier, and it's damage control. It's how do you deal with when you mess up? It's when you mess up, when you fall off the wagon, when you skip 2-3 days of the gym and I think I'm done with this. This wasn't working. I mean, damage control. Some people would say resilience. I always talk about resilience. Damage control is a really big deal. And as a matter of fact, let's just take a minute, Jerry. You saw this video clip. I'm going to edit this video clip in right now. This was Cliff Brooks, our personal trainer friend, great guy. This was a post he made the day after Thanksgiving, or yes, the day after Thanksgiving. And we're going to let this run. And he talks about how after eating 5,000 calories on Thanksgiving, how he's going to make his adjustments.
What did you do for Thanksgiving? I, of course, ate way too much. And my dog got a big old steak because I love her. Anyway, tomorrow I am not going to starve myself and pretend like fasting all day long for the next day and a half, 2 days is gonna fix the fact that I ate 5,000 calories minimum today. No, I'm just gonna get back on track, do what I have to do, eat normally, go to the gym, get my steps in, do all the normal things that I do on a daily basis. Try doing that tomorrow instead of completely going to the gym and working out for hours and hours and hours thinking that's going to fix it, or starving yourself thinking that that's going to get rid of all the calories that you ate. That's like putting a band-aid on a broken leg. You've got some eating issues that you need to work on, some mindset stuff. And this is what really matters. If you make a mistake, get back on. Don't try to make up for it. Just keep moving, get back on track, and just go.
Well, that's Cliff Brooks on how you handle eating 5,000 calories in one day and what you do afterwards. But that getting back on the horse, that getting back on the program is really the answer to this. Nobody is perfect every day. You mess up. You mess up your plan with the best of intentions and the best of commitments. You mess up. You cannot let that end the routine. What do you got on that, Jerry?
I guess I'm going to say the road to heaven feels like hell, and the road to hell feels like heaven. And that I always want to wrap it up with that. I mean, it's you're going to have to endure pain and suffering, and your previous obsessions, like the way what makes it easier to get back on track when you fall off the track is what you've achieved in your previous obsessions, right? So what you've learned is that worked and this did not work. And if I don't get back to what worked, this is going to go south really quick. So, keep in mind, like that road to heaven feels like hell. But at the end of the day, and it doesn't take that long, things are going to start getting a whole lot better for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, everybody falls off the program. Just make sure it's temporary. Just make sure it's just a temporary thing. You get back on the program, you pick right back up where you left off and keep it going. Friends, we have covered an awful lot of material today. We've gone from choices to commitment to accountability, the man in the mirror. We've talked about winning the day, and we've talked about damage control. It is our hopes that these conversations can help you with whether it's your goals, your resolutions, your restart, your reset, whatever you might call it. We hope that this can be helpful for you. We are very grateful you've joined us today. We hope that this helps. And if you liked what you hear, join us next time. We're going to go every 2 weeks or so is when these get posted. Please, I love the comments that some of you have written on our YouTube channel. Love them. We try and answer them best we can. But thank you for joining us. Jerry, what do you got to say in closing here? Anything special?
Embrace the battle. Go get them.
I love it. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye now.